Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today's episode features a lifetime athlete from Canada who received her degree in family medicine and has been in practice since 2016. She started competing in 2015 while looking for a challenge, and a one and done mentality turned into going after her pro card. And she ended up earning it at the Canadian National Pro Qualifier 4 years and 13 shows later, with 9 pro qualifiers in that. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more about her journey and learning from her. And I hope you guys are too. So welcome to the show, Melanie. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you. I am, like I said, excited to talk to you. And I always love asking if there's anything that you do or maybe think about or ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to this. I just really shake it out, do a little happy dance and try to, kind of psych myself on before hopping on stage. Sometimes, depending on the situation, I'll have a little pep talk with my coach and all that. But no, nothing too ritual per se. It's been such a long journey. I'd say every show it's a different mentality and a different routine, but not in particular, I can say.
That's cool though. I like how you have something different each time. And that's really like what bodybuilding is. It seems like every prep is different and requires a different mentality for us to level up. And I definitely want to talk to you about new competitors. I've gotten a lot of requests from people to discuss like what a new competitor might think of or focus on, or maybe even need to be prepared for before deciding to compete. And because you post a lot about what girls who haven't competed before might need to expect, or maybe what type of athlete should consider bodybuilding. And one thing in particular you said is how being a bodybuilder requires you to be able to face defeat and criticism. And I was hoping you could share how you've faced that in the past and how you handled it.
Yeah, that's a really good topic. So I've come from a very competitive background. I used to dance a lot when I was a kid, and actually I only started doing like competitions with my dance crew just later on in high school. And I mean, I've always been a super competitive person. So going into med school, I had to find this new challenge. And this friend of mine kind of said, "Hey, Mel, you should try this." And I was like, okay, what is this all about? And I've never kind of not really knew much about bodybuilding until I've attended my first show in 2015. And it was kind of, I don't know how to explain, just uh, like the art of sculpting your body into this fascinating physique. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I thought, I'm just going to diet a little bit and lift some weights and look good on stage, have some makeup. Oh my Lord, no, it's a totally different ball game. But when I did my first show in 2015 and I came second, and just the progress and the changes that you've seen and all the hard work you put in, I knew that this was not the end. So probably the first thing that I would say to new competitors is that if you do a show, chances are that you'll have the itch to do more shows. And I'm sure that you've had that bug too. So one show led to another, and then every show you just kind of learn new things about your body, brought your mindset to a different, level of discipline and motivation, and you meet so many new people along the way. So it's a really nice family, and just having all that support. But I mean, it's not always glamorous, and people, we see on Instagram, people will say, oh, this is great, I'm doing like 30 minutes of cardio 2 weeks out. Well, it's not always that glamorous. Like, there are, people that want it, they will work hard. And we've seen the pros suffer until the end. So I mean, for first time competitor, expect that you're going to be working hard. You're going to have some sacrifices. Not all your friends and family will understand why you're bringing a Tupperware of chicken and
Mhm.
asparagus to your gatherings. And but I was fortunate enough that my friends and family really, it took a while to understand, but they finally understood why I love doing that sport so much. And they were really accommodating. So I mean, I could talk so much about this subject, but no, it's a really fascinating sport, and it just drives your mindset and discipline to a whole new level.
Absolutely. I really like a lot of the points that you touched on there. Specifically, one thing at the end that you just mentioned was it can take some time for people to understand, and eventually they may or may not get it. And it's really nice when they do. But I think
Mhm.
it's just a good reminder to have patience with people and also with
Yeah.
yourself. And like you said, you've come to really embrace this. You really like it. It's taught you a lot. It's pushed you in new competitive ways. You've always been
Mhm.
competitive too. I'm really curious though, because you started competing like the year before you went into practice, right?
Yeah. So what happens, my whole process to get to medicine. So we do a 2 year pre-med. So it's like an intense condensed 4 years into two. That's through the French system. Then 4 years of intense med school of like no sleep, caffeine overdrive. And then afterwards, I applied for my residency in family medicine. So that's a little more chill if you want. I mean, we still have to see patients, and it's more like hands-on. You see patients, that's how you learn. You're not always in your textbooks. So, you were working the regular hours, usually 8 to 4. Sometimes if you're on call, you would work a little bit. So my schedule was a lot more freer during those 2 years. And honestly, I didn't really expect you to join. I think I just realized that my lifestyle and my fitness was not where I wanted to be. Not that I was too small or anything. Where I came from a dancing background, we're pretty smaller individuals. I would say, like, you wouldn't see a lot of dancers with a lot of muscles or muscle definition. So I wanted to embrace the health and promote health to my patients, and it kind of just worked out to join the fitness industry. And I started off just going through a meal plan and going to the gym, and it just one thing led to another. So I really didn't expect it to compete, but I managed to find a balance between work and fitness. And yeah, it was tough during exams where you had to study and try to crunch your workouts and stuff like that. But it just ended up like my shows were after my major exam, so I was able to coordinate things. So it was running pretty smoothly.
Awesome. I that's something I really want to talk to you about too. And I will get into that for sure, just
Mhm.
how you manage your schedule. But to be able to do that while finishing up school and immersing into this career that you've been studying for night after night and day after day, of course, and being entrenched in it requires a certain level of commitment and discipline that maybe not all people have. And it can definitely benefit you, I'm sure, in bodybuilding. Do you feel like it helped you to have that mentality going into this sport, or do you feel like the sport maybe even took it up a second notch?
hmm I mean, when I used to dance a lot when I was a kid, I used to, go to school in the daytime. Then after school my classes would go like from 5 to 9. So I had to find ways to do my homework. So I really came from a background of discipline. If you want something, you need to work for it. And I was always hard on myself. Like, I always wanted to overachieve and, okay, I've attained this goal, but what happens if I bring it to a next level? And my ballet teacher, she's from Russia. So she was very, hard on you, and oh, that's not good enough. You need, so that really helped me to bring myself to where I was. But no, I would say that even the bodybuilding fitness industry and just the whole prep brought my discipline to another level, because motivation comes and goes, but you need to have that discipline. That takes time. It's not something that you can get overnight. It's something that, once you see improvements and results, that's what keeps you going, and knowing that you have to do that to keep heading towards your end goal.
I love that. It's so true. Like, yes, going into it, it's required. But then when you start to see the impact of your commitment, it's motivating to want to keep going. And I sometimes hesitate to say, like, this sport isn't for everyone, but honestly, I don't think it is. And I think
No.
you tend to agree with me on that from everything I've seen. So who do you think it is for, and who do you think it's not for?
So I mean, not everybody understands the sport until you really are in it. And I mean, I've seen girls even around in my city here that were like, "Oh, Melanie, I really want to compete." I'm like, "Yeah, but you don't know what it is until you do it." And then prep comes, and they let go of prep because they didn't realize how hard it was. So you really need to be crazy really to be in the sport. I mean, you have to starve yourself at a certain point. You're doing cardio like you wouldn't believe. You're getting up. Sometimes you don't want to, but you're like, I have to. And working out sometimes can be like 2-3 hours a day. So I mean, if you really it all comes to, if you really want it, you'll do whatever it takes to get there. And I'm the type that I don't want to prep to finish last. I want to prep and be successful. I mean, you can only control yourself. You can't control who shows up to the show. So you have at the end of the day, you have to do this because you want to. Nobody's forcing you to do all these crazy things for so many amounts of weeks for of maybe like a minute or a few seconds on stage. But just the journey of doing that and knowing that you've put all that hard work is really it really pays off. So I think, like, it's hard if you haven't done a show. I think it's nice to see if it's for you, and if it's not, well, it's not the end of the world. I think you can still be healthy and not go to the extremes like this sport. So I think for some, I mean, you'll see people that walk down the street and they're like, "Oh, I'll never do that in my life." But for some that never competed before, I think if they want to try it out, it's not a bad idea. But it's like we said, it's not for everybody, and you need to have that underlying drive and discipline, because if you don't have that, it's going to be a long and hard process.
Yes. And there's been some girls who've come on this podcast in the past, and they said, I wish that I had developed that discipline before getting into the sport, or I'm grateful that I did because it taught me discipline. And I think depending on what camp you're in, like if you're coming into this without discipline, you got to be prepared to face setbacks and to face failure, which you're going to face even with discipline, So
Exactly.
that thick skin is definitely required. And like you said, that drive, so you can keep getting up. And I think that you represent someone who's really embraced this sport as a lifestyle, and you've re-emphasized that, okay, you got to do this for the process, not just for that 45 seconds to 1 minute or what's appearingly glamorous. So what does your life look like from improvement season to prep?
So I really try to concentrate. Like after every shows, I sit down with my coach and we talk about, okay, where do we need some improvement? We get feedbacks from the judges. And I mean, depending on, if I've been competing a lot, like in 2019, that was a crazy year. So we
Yes.
really took a month off of just, I wasn't tracking anything. I felt like crap afterwards, but I think I just needed to get that off of my skin. And usually I know when I feel like, okay, no, I need to get back in my routine. I just don't feel great. Not that I go overboard, but I just don't feel healthy and good. I don't sleep well. So we try to work as much as I can during my off seasons, because I know once prep starts, which usually for me, like when we start really cutting out things like, okay, no more cheat meals or refeeds unless we think we need it. I usually start 10 to 8 weeks out of a planned show, but I try to, get my muscle definition or gain some muscle mass if we need to, or work on where I lack the most during my off season. So when I am in prep, it's not, crunch time. And I don't believe into gaining 30, 40 pounds in off season and then starting prep 20 weeks out and trying to shred everything or get rid of everything that you've gained over the last few weeks to months, possibly, because then you just yo-yo and it gets difficult, and then prep just is not fun anymore, and you get, all sorts of emotions and stuff like that. So that's where I try to stay between 10 pounds max over my stage weight. So then when I do prep, it's not too hard on my system.
Definitely. And I think, you know, that's that's important to know like what's best for your body and what's best for you. And you mentioned that in 2019, it was a long year for you. And I believe you did like 5 shows in 4 months. So
Oh my God. Yeah.
that's crazy. Did you ever like you did say after you kind of just needed a mental break and just eat and not track everything, but did you ever feel burnt out during that season?
Honestly, I don't know which planet I was on in that year. I was so determined. I know at one point I thought my coach was gonna kick me out of the team because he was like, "You're driving me like nuts. I'm gonna have a heart attack with you."
Why?
Just because it was every time, and you're so close and you're like, oh,
Yes.
it was a roller coaster of emotions, that for sure. But I didn't really feel that burnt out because I knew like in 4 weeks I was going to step on stage again, and I was so looking forward to work on my where we needed to work on, because I knew I could do it. And I'm that type that, okay, I'm not going to give up until I can reach my goal. And if it takes 10 trials, I'll do the 10 trials. Mind you, we had some doubt after my fourth show, because going into that show, that was the Ben Weider in September, and I didn't plan to do it. It was really like a last minute show, and that prep or that peak week, we really did it differently. So I came a lot leaner and smaller than what I'm used to on stage. And when people, especially from back home, they're like, "Oh, Mel, this is your show. This is your day. Like you're gonna," and then knowing that you felt short and you weren't able to bring that for yourself, but other people's that were expecting that you were going to bring that package to that show. So I had a lot of, oh, am I doing that show in October? Am I not? But I can't really say that I was burned out. I was kind of disappointed in myself that I wasn't able to get to that point, because you put all that hard work. It's like you're studying for a math test and you expect that you're getting an A+, but you're getting a B+, type of deal. But I know it's part of the game, and you have to accept that there's people that gonna just be better than you that day, and you can't hide yourself and kind of isolate yourself from that. So I was just on a different planet that year, and I didn't really feel like I had time to feel burned out, because it was just
Mhm.
one show after the other. But after that fifth show, my body was like, yeah, I need I need a little break, mentally and physically, just to kind of recharge my battery a little bit.
Wow, that is an experience that you'll probably always remember. And I want to touch on what you said about how people were maybe expecting it was going to be your show
Mhm.
and you weren't really planning on doing it. And then you guys did a different peaking process. And then after that, you ended up going on to win your pro card, which is awesome. And I definitely want to ask you how you felt going into that after that Ben Weider show. But why do you think people were expecting that to be your show? And what do you think was different about the peaking process, or what was different about it?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been prepping for almost, well, no, maybe like 6 months. We did a mini cut for the Arnolds, so brought a totally different package than what we're used to, um, and I was winning my class show after show, except for the Olympia where I came in third. But it was just I was just because there's not a lot of shows here in Canada, so I was just doing them back to back. The only one that I didn't do was Vancouver because it was on the other side of the country, and expenses were piling up there a little bit. So there's not a lot of girls in my hometown that are at that level. So knowing that someone from a small town like I'm from, competing to a very high level competition, there was just a lot of pressure, and a lot of supports from back home too, and really pushing, oh, you can do this, you got this. So, and I think just the fact that it was going to be my fourth show that year, which not a lot of girls that I know do that many at an amateur level, at least not here in Canada. But I'm not sure how much shows and traveling costs in the US, but it's an expensive sport, and that's another point too. Like if you haven't competed before, like it's easy to cut corners a little bit, but it's expensive sport. So I think people were just not tired to see me on stage, but at a certain point they're like, okay, like you got this. This is your fourth show, and it was a small show too. So people were just hoping, and I was hoping too, to bring that card back home. But yeah, I was upset with myself. But like I say, it's the sport is not just winning and all that. You need to enjoy the process as well. So yeah, a lot of pressure, and I was hoping to bring that. But no, peak was different because I did a show 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks before, at the Olympia in Vegas. So that show too, I didn't plan to do. I had already booked my trip to go there for my friend's birthday, and it's like, well, I'm already in shape, might as well go do the show. And I just kind of kept prepping. It was probably not It's not easy to prep in Vegas if you haven't done that before. But yeah, because I think not even 2 weeks after, I was gonna step on stage again in Ben Weider. But yeah, just try to bring a different approach. And I barely ate on show day, just because I get very vascular and very hard usually. So we try to cut the food as much, but it was to my disadvantage because I was actually not what's the word I'm looking for? Not full enough. And that was one of the major critiques I had from the judges. So that was the main. So every time we try to find a balance between eating not too much, but not too little, so I can just be in the middle. So yeah, it's been a quite the journey, that's for sure.
Yeah, sounds like it. And you were able to eventually nail it. I mean, just right after that, you went on and you won your pro card. So do you feel like you guys just had a better peaking process, or do you feel your body was just in a better position?
Well, Personally, I didn't find that I had my best physique at that show where I got my pro card. I find, and with my coach Chris Carulian, um, we both find that my best package was at the Olympia. I was fuller, and it was kind of crazy because I traveled on Monday. And our flights here from Moncton to Vegas are usually pretty early. So I flew in, it was early at 5 o'clock or something, and you by the time you travel with the time change, I was there at 12, but I competed the next day at 12 roughly for the Olympia. So somehow my body really didn't retain a whole lot of water, and I was very full on stage. Yeah, my show, I mean, we did a few things differently. We try not to be too aggressive during the peak. We try to be so I'm ready at like 95% on that Monday, so that during peak week it's really just a really a breeze. But I wouldn't say we change a whole lot. We just try to eat a little bit every few hours, and not pump too much backstage. And yeah, I guess it was my time, and I was very fortunate to have this all the support that I had throughout the long journey.
Yeah. Oh, that's super awesome. And I know like when you get on a roll or you have that momentum, you really
Mhm.
can feel kind of like how you said, like on another planet. You're just focused on, that goal. You're focused on being better. And I really am curious how you felt because you said it wasn't your best physique where you went pro. Did you feel less excited about winning your pro card? Do you feel like, oh, I should have done better? I should have brought a better package? Or were you like, I'm thrilled?
Well, I mean, I was super excited to get the card. Looking back at the photos, I was like, oh, I could have had you know, not peaked a little bit better, but I could have worked a little bit more on my posing. I felt like my glutes could have been a little bit fuller. And some of these shows, I can't remember if that show finished late, but sometimes you're on stage by like 12 o'clock at night. I think you
Hmm.
finish a little earlier, which I was happy because, you always want to go and grab something after and everything's closed. But yeah, no, like I said, it was not my best, but not my worst. But no, regardless, I was very ecstatic that I finally won that famous card.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was your feedback after that show?
So yeah, so we just have to build a little bit more, try to get a bit more muscle definition, not too much so, and keep working on my core. It's always been an issue of mine. I tend to breathe with my abdomen instead of my chest, which was something that I'm still working on as of today. But yeah, just posing wise, they didn't have a lot of things to say. But overall, just trying to work on gaining just a little bit more muscle so I can eventually, if I step on stage for my pro debut, to match with some of the amazing girls out there.
Yeah, and you were gonna do a pro debut
I
and then
know.
oh my gosh, that's seriously heartbreaking.
Uh, it was, I was expecting it, but at the end I was like, oh, I can't just stop. And what if it does happen and
Yeah.
I've, dropped out? But deep down I knew it was going to happen just because of everything happening in Toronto. And they were supposed to have a show a couple weeks before mine, and that one got canceled like the day of the show.
Oh, I remember
So
that.
it was horrible. I knew a lot of people that went to that show. Like they flew in, they knew they had to quarantine 2 weeks coming back home, but they learned the day before that the show was canceled. Like I felt some of them had their tan on. I can just imagine all that time, effort, money invested, and but a lot of them took that opportunity and did some last minute photo shoot, but it's still not the same. You want to be able to step on stage and show off what you've worked so hard on for the last few months. But yeah, no, it was really tough mentally. I'm not gonna lie. I would have rather, finish dead last and step on a stage and than to be have a show cancel like that with everything. And I thought that we had brought an improved package as well, and I was really excited to bring that and see how I compared to the other girls that were going to compete too. But I guess it'll be for next time.
Yeah. Do you have a next time in mind?
So we are all depending on how COVID and everything's happening, but we were planning to do the Ben Weider. I believe it's moved to the state this year,
Yeah.
November. If because I was going to do the Toronto Pro too, but that one got postponed as well in December. So those are the two potential shows where the restrictions are not lifted yet from traveling to the States. And with work, it's a little difficult to book 2 weeks off, but with vaccines and stuff, maybe things will be a little bit more less restricted. But so far, those are the two shows that are in mind.
Yeah, it's such a bummer though that like this is keeping international competitors
Oh, mhm.
from actually, getting a chance to qualify for the Olympia or just do their pro debuts, compete, win a pro card. Like it's really unfortunate, especially because I know Canada is being very strict. So
Yeah, very. And I mean, I'm following the news too, and I see like shows are happening left and
Mhm.
right, and not wearing masks. And here in Canada, they're still like, oh no, you need to, and all that. But it's getting better here, but it's just taking a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And I imagine, just watching that go down when you were ready and then have it
Hmm.
canceled and then continue to see things happen in another place and like, why can't I go do it? Like you want to be able to do that and have your freedom to do that, and you're not able to. So what have you been focused on with that limbo stage? I know you said you like to stay within like striking distance of being ready for a show, but what are you focusing on to maybe continue to build on that package that you felt really confident in before that show was canceled?
So yeah, so I mean it's hard knowing that your shows are so far away. Like last year, it was like, oh, I'm 10 weeks out. And then 10 weeks would go by. Oh, okay, I'm another 10 weeks out. So
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was prepping for like a whole year. Oh my God, that was way worse than doing 5 shows the year before. And I would do that 5 shows over again compared to going through what I did last year. And I mean, I know there's a lot of people that were in the same boat as well, so they know how it felt, especially like I say, the ones that had their show canceled the day of. But no, I mean, it's been difficult. I find mentally this year it's been hard to like, okay, you need to focus, you need to be disciplined. Just a lot of happening with work too, and setting up a new office, and that's another chapter of its own there. But yeah, so we're trying to just eat as much as I can, train as hard as I can. There's days where I don't feel like doing it, knowing that things are so far away, but I just try to keep myself reminded, okay, there's someone out there that is competing at the same show, and I'm sure that they're training twice as hard as you are, and prepping and all that. So I just try to have that little voice in my mind to keep me on track. But no, I try to stay the 8-10 weeks out range. So for me it's always been around the, like, at least no more than 10 pounds over stage weight. But I mean, I fluctuate a whole lot through my last shows, but I try not to go overboard with that, and that just there too keeps me motivated as well. But sometimes I know, like at one point, I did take some time off from the gym, especially where our gyms were quarantined and you were waiting for your own home gym to arrive. So there's weeks where it was hard to get back in that routine. But yeah, no, I'm trying to stay focused on that, and we'll see where it'll bring us.
Definitely. Yeah. That was a tough year for I think any competitor, but definitely the people who had shows lined up, like, like personally, that was really hard for me too. I think it served me in many ways, but it's hard on your body, and you keep holding out, and then you're thinking about what's next, and you want to keep that fire burning, and you want it
Mhm.
to grow bigger, and sometimes it's hard to win. You feel like, okay, there's not much for me to add to this flame, and yet you find it in you to do that. And sometimes it's paid off for some, like me, gratefully, but for others it didn't, and that's unfortunate. But
Mhm.
um you said that you really want to focus now, or that you are focused now on eating as much as you can, lifting as much as you can. How do you make sure you're getting the most out of your lifting sessions?
Oh, that's a good one. I know it's been a challenge. We're all hooked on our phones and we try to focus, but my coach has a great app, and he's still working on trying to add some new features to it. But we're able to track our own weight, and there's a little timer so that, like, if you have a 60-second break in between, you can stay on track with that. And like every time, like your next week, well, you can see what you lifted the week before, and oftentimes you're like, oh wow, how come this 20 pounds feels so light this week? So I think just having that and kind of build yourself on that really helps. I think we always think we're working hard, but I'm sure we can add another 10% to that. So I always try to whenever I do my reps, to try to push myself so that my last couple reps there, I'm having a hard time executing the full rep. Usually if I'm sore or it hurts, for me, I know that I worked that muscle. I try not to push myself too hard that I overexert it. And that's where at one point we were actually training every second day to give my body a break and time to rest. And that actually paid off too. So that was really good. At first, I didn't feel, I was like, are you sure, Chris, we should do that? Because we're so used to training like 6 times a week and then one day off, and going every second day was kind of not something that I was used to. But no, I try to stay off my phone as much as possible, crank up the music, and try to concentrate on my form and making sure I really have that mind muscle connection to the muscle I want to work. I know, like, my husband, he'll train with, well, not necessarily with me, but I'll ask him, okay, can you make sure my form's good? And he'll tweak a few things. I can always send videos to my coach too to make sure my form is great. So kind of when you videotape yourself, you're kind of like, that someone's watching, so you tend to push yourself even a little bit more. So I'm really the horse with the visors in the gym. I don't really like to talk to people. It just, kind of gives you kind of lose that concentration. So I try to do that so that my workouts are not 2 hours long. I try to keep them short but very efficient.
I
Mhm.
like that. Those are some really good tips and insight, and especially into what's worked for you, and just in general, like the focus that you're bringing to the workouts. I really like how you said that when you think you're pushing yourself hard, you could probably give another 10%. And it sounds like you're definitely not afraid of failing and pushing that, and making sure that you are growing and improving and getting stronger. It's nice to see those numbers going up. And I've seen in some of your posts, you say, like, I'm not the most genetically gifted. And I'm really curious how you're not genetically gifted for the sport, and what you've done to morph your physique so that you could be successful.
Yeah, so in bikini specifically, they're looking for the small waisted girls, the full glutes. You want a somewhat of a shoulder cap, but not, figure like. And so I'm not gifted in the sense that I don't have that small waist. And it's something that, we can't really change. I can't even I've tried the waist trainers and stuff like that, and no, it it gives you the same waist circumferences, but I find that doing vacuums, which has been a popular trend in the last few years, has really helped tremendously bringing that waist down, especially for your front pose. And even the front pose change over the last few years. I remember the old CBBF posing where you were having your hand on the hip and a little twist, but you had to have your hips facing forward. And I remember hating that because I'm basically, well, not basically, but close to squared. And I think that came from my dance background, but I don't have that hourglass shape like a lot of some of the girls do have, and it's really it looks nice on stage. So I've tried to work on my lats to help make my waist look smaller, bring the shoulder caps as well. We worked so hard on my glutes because, oh wow, I had nothing when I started,
Really?
and trying to do the optical illusions with your posing so that I wouldn't face straight on the judges. So little things like that you learn over the years. It takes, I mean, I might be biased, but I find that for me, it takes a long time to build a muscle because I have a high metabolism, like cutting down during prep. I'm oftentimes ready before a couple of weeks. So we've learned throughout the last year that we can slow down a little bit. So for me to build muscle, it takes a long time. And I mean, I've been at it for 5-6 years, and I know I'm still not at the level of some of the pro girls out there as well. And so for me, it does take a long time to build the muscle. So that's where I find that genetically, I do lack in there as well. So,
You've certainly come a long way. Like when I looked at your initial competition pictures to now, I'm like, oh my gosh, girls,
yeah.
amazing. And obviously, we see like, oh, I could improve on this, or I need to
Oh
build
yeah.
more.
Oh, definitely. It's a constant work in progress. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. I was just talking to my coach like last month, and I was training with him in person, and I was like, I realized that, in bodybuilding, you're really never going to be fully satisfied because there's
Never.
always more, there's always better, and not just for yourself, but the industry evolves too. So you got to stay up to
Exactly.
date, study, and then be prepared to pivot and change. And it's very interesting. So you really have to like the process, as you said earlier. And I want to ask you about your experiences competing in shows in the US versus Canada. And then maybe ask you too about like the difference in the natural shows versus the non-drug tested ones. But let's start with Canada versus US. Do you notice a difference?
So I did, I think 2 shows in the US. I did the Arnold Amateur in 2018, which I think was by far my favorite show. It was my first international show too. So just the experience backstage, you felt like you were, in Glam City. I don't know if you've ever done the
Mm-mm.
Arnolds, but it was just like mirrors everywhere. You know, that typical mirror with all those light bulbs around the
Yes.
mirror. And I remember meeting so many people from around the world, those Australians, the Brazilians, sure, like so intimidated. But in general, and that was the first show that anybody could go. Like you didn't have to qualify to do the Arnolds as well. So a lot of different, like I remember meeting one that never stepped on stage before. But in general, my experience between both shows, I think it all depends on the judges, because I know certain judges like a certain physique, And even like throughout different shows in Canada, some judges like a harder physique, some like the softer. I know, I'm trying to remember the one in Arnold's. That's where, yeah, that was my first. Yeah, no, I mean, my experience overall, I love doing shows in the US. A lot of different like experience wise, but the shows that I've done were all international, and we can't compete in like the regional shows and the nationals in the States, because I think you need to be a US citizen. But no, overall, I really enjoy my experience in the US. I find that just yeah, just their organization as well. The stage were incredible as well. But no, overall, like experience wise, I would say it's about the same, Canada versus US. In terms of Canada's, like the shows, it's really it very varies. I've done both natural shows and the open classes. I would say the natural shows are super competitive. I remember doing the natural in 2019, and holy, the I think too it's because there was only one or two nationals natural shows, so the classes were huge. I think in my class we were like close to 30, versus the other open shows we would be closer to like the teens or early 20s, but they were huge and very, very competitive. But overall experience was very pretty much the same. The criterias, they weren't looking for a softer look for naturals. It was really, really representative at every shows. Like I say, certain head judge had different, like they prefer a harder physique or softer look, but overall experience was very similar.
That's actually really interesting. I would love to do some international shows because I think it'd be really fun to just get that experience. And
Yeah.
I think it's I think also the Ben Weider natural shows I thought, oh, that would be a great show to do.
Mhm,
And they
mhm,
really do look competitive. Like,
mhm.
I mean, no one's that's the thing. I love those natural shows because you can see like, wow, it's possible, like it's possible to
No,
achieve that.
definitely. Yeah, no, and it's very surprising. Like I remember the first time I did my first natural show, I think was in 2018. I was so intimidated. The girls were so like it was very competitive. And the girls knew what they were doing. And I mean, some of them were veterans, but even like the newbies were like it was really nerve-wracking for sure. But no, it's nice to know that we do have that option in this sport. And I mean, everybody, it's everybody's game. If people want to do other peds or stuff like that in the sport, it's part of the game. But it's
Mhm.
nice to have that option to do the natural way. And now that we have the Ben Weider, which at the pro level, you can have your one-way ticket to the Olympia, and that's what happened in 2018. Actually, the girl who won her pro card at the natural, I had went against, and she went and did her Ben Weider. That was her first pro show, and she won, and she got her ticket straight to the Olympia. So that was really nice to see that we have that opportunity now, especially for people who want to stay in the natural league. Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. It's really cool because like you said, you accept that that's part of the game. But you also now have this opportunity to express it in other ways too and show yourself and show what's possible and know that you can actually be competitive in every level, especially as a bikini competitor. And I just think it's really cool to see girls do that and to see like what is possible, especially because I know there's people listening who aren't, maybe they want to stay natural forever, maybe they don't, but let's say they do, it's nice to see that these things are achievable at that level.
Mhm.
And yeah, I was curious, like, do you have to do the drug test? I had Maya Gordon come on and she talked a little bit about her experience with it, but I was curious, like, I forget actually, did you have to do the drug test before? Or is it just like the people who win?
Yeah, so I know like it all depends. I knew people that did the drug test, but they didn't win their pro cards. A close friend of mine who did men's physique, I believe he was picked out to do the drug testing, but he won his class, but he didn't win his pro card. I never had to do a drug test because I think they have certain amounts of drug tests, and they're really expensive. They're like in the few $100 the test, and they only test a few things as well, because I think the more you want to test, the more expensive it is. But in general, I think they pick, and that, like I said, it all depends. I've seen shows maybe more on the regional aspect that they would do the winners, but they would do random people as well. So I've seen people get pulled out of a hat as well. But I think at a national level, pro level, they will test the winners, and see how it goes. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I just think that's so cool. I love that. And it's a different aspect of the sport that we don't always hear about. So
Mhm.
appreciate you sharing your experiences. And I definitely want to talk to you about your lifestyle because you've embraced bodybuilding while also building your career as a professional, as a doctor. So what has this looked like for you over the years and how do you make it work with your schedule?
Well, it took me a long time to figure out, but what works best for me is to work out in the morning. Now with COVID, there's hours change at the gym, so I kind of have to like really be productive in the gym. But I've actually changed my schedule, so I start a little bit later. And what's nice about my practice is I'm what we call fee for service. So I can basically decide my own schedule, versus there's another type of salaried physician where they have to work a certain amount of hours a day, because they have a certain salary. So I'm fortunate that I can pick my own schedule. But for me, waking up in the morning, going to do my workout works best. So then I'm already energized for the day. And I usually work, it all depends. There's certain days that, it's not possible because I had either I work from 4 to midnight the day before, and getting up at 5 the next day is not always ideal. So I try to plan my days too, to have my off gym days the next day. So that's usually like cardio. But no, usually that's what I would do. I would do my training in the morning, work, and then after work, I'll go home and prep for the next day. I do my meal preps a couple times a week, which that is a lifesaver. If people out there listening, meal prep is a really game changer. I know for some they don't, like to eat the same thing every day, but I've been eating the same food for the last 6 years, and I never get bored of it. You just have to change it up a little bit. Sometimes the spices, or one might, instead of eating chicken, substitute it with another type of protein, just so you don't get bored. But yeah, I mean, there's days where, it's not perfect. I'm not perfect, but I try to make it functioning. And I just try to keep myself, or keep telling myself that I'm not only doing this for myself, but I'm doing this for my patients as well. I've had a few patients come up to me and say, Melanie, I'm so fortunate to have you as my doctor. You really told me, or you really scared me when you said that I could, be seriously ill in the next few years if I don't look after myself. Some people, really change from 180. I remember there's one guy I didn't recognize. I haven't seen him over a year, and he lost like, oh, I can't remember how many pounds, like close to 100 pounds. And he said, it's because of you that I'm here. We know we stopped so many medications. So for me, it's really motivating hearing that, and it's so rewarding knowing that you're changing someone's life for the better. So I try to keep that motivated as well. But there's days where I don't want to get up and I rather stay in bed. But we all have those off days, and we just have to remember that it's an off day, not an off month, and we'll just, get back on track to the next day. But no, it's been difficult, especially like I said, my schedule is all over the place. There's weeks where I'm on call for my group at the hospital, so I would go work out in the morning, then do rounds at the hospital for my group of patients that are admitted, and then I would do office work in the afternoon, and then you cross your fingers that everybody's stable and you can go home. Sometimes you get called in the middle of the night because someone's not doing well. But yeah, overall, like I think I've been able to get this routine so that it's almost like second nature now. If there's days, if I've skipped a few days of gym, I'm starting to, okay, no, this can't keep happening. So it's for me, I'm fortunate that I haven't been off, for a long period of time, that it's difficult to get back in the routine. So, but yeah, it's been challenging, but no, it's you just have to find time, because you'll always hear, oh, I don't have the time. But I'm sure if you would put that Netflix away, or put your phone away, or, save your movie for the weekend, and you would train, put that time and effort into training, you would be able to get those things accomplished. And at the end of the day, you just feel so much better about yourself. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, my head is going in so many directions
Yeah.
because I'm like, I want to ask her about this now, and I'm thinking about that. So I'm like, okay, where do I start? Well, I guess I should start with, like, you are an example to your patients, right? Like, that is a big driving factor for you. And how do you maintain empathy when someone says, I don't have time, and you're over there
I
doing
just
all
want
of
to
that?
shake them like, if I can do it, you can do it. But I've learned over the years that I'm here to provide help, information, and knowledge to my patients. But at the end of the day, it's up to them if they want to take that information and put it into practice. And it takes time. I'm sure that you've heard about the steps of changing a habit. So there's like the pre-contemplation, there's the I can't remember all the steps. Something,
Contemplation,
yeah, you've
yeah,
action, and then
action,
those things that we do learn in
maintenance.
in med school as well, that I've learned to adapt or put into practice in with my patients. But I mean, there's a lot of people that are in their pre-contemplation. They're like, oh yeah, I could change my eating habits. Oh yeah, but we live in a culture where people want the easy way out. They would rather take a pill than change their eating habits. And for me, it's so hard to accept as a doctor, but I have to because I can't take their hand and bring them to the grocery store and do their grocery for them. They have to put in the works. So it's been hard, but I try to explain, and I acknowledge to them, and I say, look, I realize that you're not ready to change your lifestyle. You're not ready to cut back on that pop, but whenever you're ready, I'm here. We can discuss a plan, and I'm more than happy to follow and kind of be like your life coach. And there's a few people that eventually it kind of hit them, either they had a heart attack, or things happen. They can't fit in their favorite pair of jeans anymore, or they have grandchildren and they can't follow up because, they're so out of breath from trying to chase them down the field. So like little things like that eventually will they'll wake up. But it's hard, because there's so many opportunities and things that I wish I could just say, like, just do it, but I know it's harder than that. And you need to flick that switch, which a lot of people don't have that motivation or that will to do, and that takes time, unfortunately.
Definitely. Yeah. And It's funny because you know that once they start, that they'll get that momentum to some degree, you know, even if they fall down 10, 20 times, like eventually the momentum will continue, even if it's just 10 minutes a day. And it's definitely difficult when you know someone has the ability, but they don't see it yet. And I think it's really cool that you're able to embrace your patients where they're at and support them in where they need to go, even, you know, if it means being patient for them. And
Mhm.
I'm curious on your perspective on bodybuilding as a doctor. Like, what do you see? What do you interpret bodybuilding as? Like, do you have any red flags with it, or how do you, you know, keep focus on health?
I mean, a lot of people are like, wow, we're doing that, but it's not healthy. But in general, people are really open about it. I know I had a patient who my photo was in the paper, and she cut it out, and she brought it in. She's like, oh, I need your autograph in case you go famous down the road.
Oh.
But like my patients are very like supportive. There's a lot of people that, they have no clue what it is. It's not something that I really talk a lot about with my colleagues, but in general, like whenever we talk about it, they're like, oh, when's your next show? It's really amazing that you can do that. But I mean, it's like anything else. Like if for me, like ultra marathon runners, I find that's crazy.
Mhm.
But when you talk to them, for them it's like nothing, right? It's just they're what they love to do. So but yeah, I mean, in terms of bodybuilding, I think we all know that there's extreme to this sport, and I do have concerns with the younger people that are starting in this sport. I mean, you can always spot them in the gym and you're like, wow, I wonder how old he or she is, and do they know what they're doing? I mean, I've had a few people come up to me asking for me to prescribe stuff, and I've said, no, I can't do that. And two, you probably should not do that at your age. So I do have concern because I feel like a lot of people think more is better, that I need to get, I have to gain 30 pounds in a year. But I mean, we always hear stories of people, passing away at a young age because of
Mhm.
either heart complications. So, but you also hear people that, live, longer and have a healthy. So I think we just have to be responsible. And if someone, wants to take it to the extreme, to make sure that they're surrounded by people who know what they're doing, to get yourself checked out with your doctor if you need to have blood work on a regular basis. But I mean, it all depends on everybody's goals, but you can go to the extreme, or like you can really, you know, take it at a healthy and natural or way of the sport. But I mean, towards the end, there's not a whole lot of healthy with the sport during the last few weeks, but luckily it's just a few weeks during the prep, and it's not something that you normally do year round unless you're prepping for a gazillion show a year. But at a certain point, your body's going to tell you like you have to take a break because it'll start shutting down. And I've seen people, their body just shut down on them, and emotionally it was hard on them. So so yeah, I mean, for me, seeing that it worries me at a certain degree, but I think people who decide to go down that route knows, well, I hope that they know what are the possible complications down the road. So I'm just hoping that they do it responsibly, and they do reach out for the proper knowledge of people that do know what they're doing. Mhm.
Yeah, I really think that's a good perspective to have, and thinking of longevity, you know, from the get-go rather than like thinking of getting there the fastest, you know, which I think is sometimes the mentality is like, I want to be the quickest to this, or I want to be the first to that, or the youngest to this. It's like, well, where do you want to be in
Yeah.
20 years, you know?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard of that study where they they question Olympians, and they said, if you had to choose if we had to give you this medication that would guarantee you to gold medal, but you would die in 5 years, would you take it? And it's
Yes.
surprising to hear the number of people that said, yes, I would take that pill. So it all depends. Like, we're humans. We want the now, and we don't care. Not that we don't care, but 5, 10 years from now, it's long from here, and we often don't think about that. But I've and seeing where my patients are so differently range from newborns to I have patients who are 100 years old, and I mean,
Wow.
when they're young, they're like, oh yeah, no, we had fun, but now that they're 40, 50 years old, they realize, okay, maybe I should have looked at myself better when you told me to when I was 20, type of deal. But you don't think about that in the moment because, we're young and healthy and all that. So I think it's a little bit the same mentality when it comes to this sport. And I mean, this sport per se, it's not, it's not something that we can do forever. At a certain point, well, our health might come in the way, or just physically our body changes. So it's definitely something that we all have to think about when we do enter this sport. Mhm.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like knowing that there's things that maybe feel good or feel justifiable now, but in the future won't be. And that leads me to wonder, like, what are some things that you're doing day to day that you think are really beneficial, or maybe even yearly or whatever, beneficial for your health to have your own health and longevity in this sport?
Yeah, so I mean, I for me, this sport, yes, there's the part of competing, but the other important part is the off season or your improvement season. But for me, it's more than that. It's my lifestyle. So I really embrace the whole eating healthy, and getting the activity and your exercise in, because for me that is your best medicine. It's not the medication that your doctor prescribed that will, I mean, yes, it will help if you have underlying health issues, but your the base of your pyramid for all your underlying health problems starts with your food, your lifestyle, and your exercise. It's like that famous Katie commercial, you are what you eat. If you eat crap, you'll feel like crap. So, and I tell that to my patient all the time. And so if you fuel your body with the proper nutrients, this will take you a long way. And that's where I try to, to remind myself to keep doing that. I mean, we'll have our days where we want to cheat and have a refeed and stuff like that. But overall, I think that's what's important for me, is to stay healthy. I'll take my multivitamins, and getting my regular checkups with my doctor, just to make sure that everything is healthy. Because nowadays we see a lot more people with diabetes at a younger age. We see more cardiovascular problems. We see more cancers, and I'm sure down the road it's just going to get younger and younger, because of we're not taking care of ourselves properly, and we're going to, or we're seeking foods that are probably not the healthiest, that are easy to make, you just put in the microwave type of deal. So yeah, I'm really more about whole foods and just being healthy, and making the right decisions, with that. And I try as well, which I've started to do more, since my crazy year competing, is just the whole mindset, and to try to not worry so much about what's going to happen tomorrow, what that person thinks about you, and just having that carefree of like, I'm doing this because I want to, has changed a whole lot for me. And I find that I'm a lot more zen, not caring about about what other people's are saying, taking breaks from social media. It's been so much better for my own health, especially with the last year of COVID, how everybody's mental health has been affected one way or another. So overall, I think it's just adding all those things together. I'm just trying to stay as healthy as possible for as long as I can.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing all that insight. And I think, there are a lot of key things there, but it sounds like everything you've been doing has not just helped you on the outside, but also internally you've focused on letting go of those concerns that maybe previously were unhealthy for you.
No, definitely.
That's amazing. I think that's really a important key and awesome that you focus on that and that you've been focused on that. And I appreciate you sharing those different things with us and how you've been able to really embrace it as a lifestyle and show it is possible. Again, I've just really appreciated everything you've taught us. I feel like I could talk to you forever. I was like, I really want
Part
to ask.
two?
Yeah, seriously. There's like,
No.
after we stop recording, I'm going to ask you if I can talk to you about something because I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't ask for permission before. And I'm like,
Oh,
I want to go there.
no, definitely.
Cool. Well, before we sign off, I always love when my guests can share their best advice for new competitors. So you've already given us a lot of great insight, but maybe the best advice you'd give someone who hasn't competed before, but is thinking about it. And then your best advice for someone on their road to pro.
Oof, that's a good one. Well, so if you're thinking about competing, I think first off, you just have to remind yourself that you're doing this for yourself. You're not doing this for your boyfriend. You're really doing this because you want to experience a challenging experience. Yeah, I mean, I could say so many things about that. But no, it's a challenging journey. You'll learn so many things about yourself, some good, some not too good. But overall, it's a beautiful, just a beautiful experience, and just to be able to have that with other people that have the same goals as well is very unique. You'll meet new people, but no, it's very difficult, and I think you need to have that mindset and discipline to enter this sport, because if you don't have that, if you're not willing to sacrifice a few things, or you're not ready to commit, then I don't think this sport is for you, and that's okay as well. And for if you're trying to get your pro card, I do recommend that you do a few local shows. Try to win your class, win your overall. Do that a few times, get some experience. Hire a opposing coach. Make sure you have a good, renowned coach. I find that when I've went to a coach that dealt with a few national competitors under their belt, they had better knowledge of what was happening at a national shows, because it is a whole different ball game once you reach the nationals, because everybody wants to be first place. A lot of people, mind you, some of them are very upcoming backstage, but a lot of them are in their zone. They don't want to be bothered. They really want to, they have their eye on that card. So but yeah, no, hiring someone that knows what they're doing. And if you don't make the top 5, the top 3 at your first national, don't get discouraged, just keep trying. And eventually, if you really want it, you will do what it takes to get to that, and just keep pushing. And if you want it, your dreams will come true.
Love that. That is an amazing sentiment. And again, I really just appreciate everything that you've shared. And I want people to be able to maybe reach out to you or follow up with you,
Definitely.
or just check in. So can you let everyone know how they can do that?
Well, probably best to reach me on my Instagram. It's Melly_Sear. So Melly_. underscore CYR. Feel free to send me a message. I'd be more than happy to answer some questions if you have any. So don't be shy. Yeah.
Thank you. I love that. And I just appreciate everything and your time as well. I'm going to pick your brain on what day after this, but just grateful again for your time, and hopefully everybody listening that you all loved it. Of course, I'm going to put her link to her Instagram on the show notes page. That's always on celestial.fit/podcast. Her episode's going to be right at the top. However, if you are listening to this in the future, just scroll to the category section, click on Melanie, and you'll be able to see her episode there. And then if you guys have anything that you want to hear on the show or guests, feel free to reach out to me. As always, I'm open to suggestions. I really appreciate your guys' listenership, and it goes a long way when you connect with the athletes or share the episodes. So thank you all so much for that and for your continued support all these years. Really means a lot to me, and I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.